In the stillness of the night, as shadows danced across the cornfields of Kansas, a blinding light erupted from the heart of a secluded farm. It illuminated the dark expanse with an intensity that was both mesmerizing and terrifying, casting an otherworldly glow over the sleeping village nearby. Whispers of fear rippled through the small community as residents peered through their windows, hearts pounding, unable to look away from the spectacle unfolding just beyond their doorsteps. What could have caused such an unearthly phenomenon? As the light flickered and pulsed like a heartbeat, a chilling realization set in. Something ancient and inexplicable stirred in the silence, leaving an unsettling question hanging in the air. What if this was not just a fleeting miracle but a harbinger of something far more sinister? In the stillness of the night, as shadows danced across the cornfields of Kansas, a blinding light erupted from the heart of a secluded farm. It illuminated the dark expanse with an intensity that was both mesmerizing and terrifying, casting an otherworldly glow over the sleeping village nearby. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze, time suspended, the very air thick with anticipation and dread. The light flickered, pulsating like a heartbeat, a rhythm that resonated deep within the chests of those who dared to gaze upon it. Whispers of fear rippled through the small community as residents peered through their windows, hearts pounding, unable to look away from the spectacle unfolding just beyond their doorsteps. The wind, usually a gentle companion, turned into a ghostly whisper, carrying with it a chill that seeped into bones and chilled the soul. It was as if the earth itself held its breath, waiting for something to reveal itself from the shadows. In the distance, the old barn stood solemnly, its weathered wood absorbing the light, yet failing to shield the surrounding fields from its invasive glow. The crops, usually swaying softly in the night breeze, lay still, a stark contrast to the vibrant luminescence that danced above. An eerie silence blanketed the area, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl, which seemed to call out, questioning the unnatural phenomenon that had gripped the night. As the villagers gathered, their expressions painted with equal parts awe and trepidation. A few ventured out, drawn by an inexplicable pull towards the source of the light. Among them was Clara, a local schoolteacher known for her rational approach to life. Yet as she stepped onto the dirt road that led to the farm, she felt an unsettling knot form in her stomach, the kind that suggested something was profoundly wrong. The usual sounds of crickets were muted, replaced by an unsettling hum that reverberated through the air, an undercurrent of vibration that seemed to resonate with the very core of her being. Clara paused, her breath hitching in her throat as she squinted towards the light. It was blinding, yet it drew her closer, an irresistible force that threatened to unravel her composure. The ground beneath her feet felt alive, pulsating with energy that made her question if she truly belonged in this moment. As she stepped further into the field, the cornstalks seemed to bow under the weight of the illumination, casting long, distorted shadows that twisted and writhed as if they were alive. The light flickered and shifted, revealing fleeting glimpses of geometric patterns etched into the earth, intricate designs that seemed impossibly perfect. They spiraled and curled, defying logic and reason, leaving an imprint of something ancient, something that should not exist in the small farming town. Clara's heart raced as she tried to make sense of what she was witnessing. The air grew thick with an unfamiliar scent, metallic and sharp, igniting a primal fear within her, a fear of the unknown, of forces beyond comprehension. Suddenly, a deep rumble echoed across the fields, a sound that sent tremors through the ground and reverberated in her chest. It was not thunder, it was something far more profound, a resonance that hinted at a presence not confined to the realm of the living. Clara turned back towards the village, her instincts screaming for her to retreat, yet her feet remained rooted to the ground, caught in a web of fascination and dread. As the villagers gathered closer, their faces illuminated by the strange glow, they began to murmur among themselves, voices low and filled with uncertainty. Those who had come out to witness the phenomenon exchanged glances, each person grappling with their own interpretation of what they were seeing. Some spoke of miracles, others of curses, but all felt the weight of an unseen gaze, as if the very light were watching them in return. "Do you think it's a sign?" whispered one man, his voice trembling as he squinted against the brilliance. "Or maybe a warning?" Clara caught the eye of her neighbor, an elderly woman named Agnes, who stood clutching her rosary tightly, her knuckles white against the colorful beads. There was fear in Agnes's eyes, the kind born from years of witnessing the inexplicable. Clara felt a chill run down her spine as she considered the legends of the land, stories of ancient spirits, of forces that danced on the edge of human understanding. Then, just as abruptly as it had begun, the light flickered violently, casting long shadows that twisted and warped as if alive. A cold wind swept through the gathering, carrying with it a sense of finality, a whisper that seemed to echo through the very fabric of the night. The villagers gasped, an instinctual reaction to the sudden shift in atmosphere. Clara's heart raced, a pulse of fear that surged through her veins. "Something is coming," she thought, her mind racing with possibilities both terrifying and wondrous. The feeling of being watched intensified, a sensation so palpable it felt as though the air itself was charged with expectation. The ground beneath her vibrated, and for a fleeting moment she thought she could hear a voice, a low, resonant hum that reverberated through her core, inviting yet menacing. Then, as if acknowledging the collective tension, the light dimmed, retreating into the darkness with a final strobing flicker. Silence enveloped the crowd, a heavy, suffocating silence that left a void where the brilliance had been. The lingering question hung in the air like a specter. What had they just witnessed? What ancient force had awakened in the heart of that secluded Kansas farm? As the villagers stood in stunned silence, Clara felt an unsettling truth settle deep within her. This was just the beginning. Whatever had stirred in the night had left an imprint, a calling that would not easily be ignored. And in the depths of that silence, a chilling realization dawned. The light may have receded, but something else lingered in the shadows, watching, waiting, and perhaps even hungry for more. The night enveloped the rural expanse like a thick, heavy blanket, smothering the distant sounds of the world beyond. The air was saturated with the earthy scent of damp soil, a lingering reminder of the storm that had swept through earlier, leaving behind a veil of humidity that clung to every surface. Clara stood transfixed, her heart pounding in rhythm with the unsettling atmosphere, as if the very ground had come alive beneath her feet. She could hear the faint rustle of leaves, whispering secrets of the ancient land that had borne witness to countless mysteries. In the stillness, the dirt road stretched out before her, a serpentine path leading to nowhere, bordered by fields that swayed like waves under the ghostly moonlight. The barn loomed in the distance, its silhouette dark and imposing against the star-speckled sky, a sentinel of the unknown. The wooden structure, once a familiar sight, now seemed cloaked in an otherworldly presence, as if it harbored secrets too profound for human comprehension. As Clara's gaze shifted back to the villagers, she noticed the unease etched on their faces. Agnes, still clutching her rosary, muttered prayers under her breath, her voice a fragile thread in the suffocating silence. Others stood motionless, their eyes darting nervously from shadow to shadow, as though searching for the source of the malevolence that had invaded their sanctuary. The slight tremor in Clara's hands mirrored the vibrations that seemed to pulse through the very fabric of the night, an uninvited guest that settled heavily upon their shoulders. A low, distant rumble echoed from the depths of the fields, a sound that didn't belong to the natural order of things. It was a guttural resonance that seemed to vibrate through Clara's very bones, awakening an instinctual fear she had long buried. The noise grew louder, almost rhythmic, as if something hidden within the earth was awakening, responding to an ancient call. The villagers exchanged nervous glances, the unspoken question hanging in the air. What could it be? The wind shifted suddenly, carrying with it an unsettling chill that cut through the warmth of their breaths. Clara shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her, though the cold felt unnatural, as if it originated from something far more sinister than the night air. The animals in the nearby fields, usually calm and docile, began to panic. Cows moaned and shifted uneasily, their eyes wide with fear, while the delicate sounds of crickets fell silent, replaced by an oppressive quiet that felt suffocating. Just then, a flash of light erupted from the horizon, illuminating the landscape in a brilliant, blinding glow that momentarily dispelled the darkness. Clara squinted, her heart racing as she tried to make sense of the phenomenon. The brilliance revealed geometric patterns etched into the ground, formations so precise they seemed to defy logic. It was as if the earth itself had been drawn by an unseen hand, creating intricate designs that pulsated with an otherworldly energy. The villagers gasped collectively, their fear mingling with wonder as they took in the sight before them. Clara felt a pull, an inexplicable urge to step closer to the shimmering light, to understand what lay at its source. Yet as she took a tentative step forward, the light flickered violently, casting eerie shadows that danced mockingly around them. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the glow diminished, retreating once more into the obsidian night, leaving behind an unsettling emptiness. The sound returned, a low hum that resonated with the very core of her being, filling the void left by the light. It was haunting, almost melodic, and yet it carried an undercurrent of dread that sent shivers racing down her spine. Clara's mind raced with thoughts of the legends she had grown up hearing, the stories of spirits that roamed the land, of cosmic forces that danced just outside the realm of human understanding. It was all coming back to her now, the warnings woven into the fabric of her childhood. "Something is coming," she whispered, the words escaping her lips before she could stop them. Agnes turned, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty, as if Clara had spoken a truth they all sensed but were too terrified to acknowledge. The villagers shifted uneasily, their breaths quickening, and Clara could feel the weight of their collective anxiety, the palpable fear that hung suspended in the air like a heavy fog. In that moment, Clara realized they were no longer merely witnesses to an unexplained phenomenon. They were participants in something far greater than themselves. The land beneath them thrummed with energy, a primal force that called out to the deepest parts of their souls. Yet, with that realization came an overwhelming sense of vulnerability, an awareness that they were mere mortals standing at the precipice of the unknown. As they stood together, united by their fear, the ground trembled once more, a subtle but undeniable shift that reverberated through the night. Clara felt it in her chest, a heartbeat that matched the cadence of the hum. It was as if the earth itself was alive, breathing, waiting with bated breath for something to unfold. And in that moment, she understood. This was just the beginning. The air was thick with anticipation, the night alive with secrets yet to be revealed, and they were all caught in the web of an ancient mystery that transcended time and space. The shadowy barn loomed closer now, its presence a constant reminder of the unknown that awaited them. Clara could feel the lingering gaze of whatever force had awakened in the darkness, a sensation that sent her heart racing and her skin prickling with unease. The villagers remained frozen, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity as the silence deepened around them, a silence that felt alive and charged with energy. Clara's mind was flooded with questions. What had they just seen? What ancient power stirred beneath their feet? And most importantly, what would happen next? The answers eluded her, slipping through her fingers like sand. But one truth became painfully clear. They were no longer alone in the night. Something was watching, waiting, and perhaps even hungry for the secrets they had yet to uncover. As the darkness pressed in around them, Clara felt an invisible tether connecting them to the land, binding them to a fate intertwined with the mysteries of the cosmos. The air hung thick with tension as Clara and the villagers stood at the edge of the field, consumed by an unsettling stillness that seemed to stretch into infinity. The night had transformed into a living entity, pulsating with an energy that was both alluring and terrifying. Clara could feel her heart pounding against her ribcage, each beat echoing the low hum that resonated from the earth itself. It was a sound she could almost taste, metallic and sweet, like blood on the tongue, a reminder of their vulnerability in the face of something beyond comprehension. The shadows of the barn loomed larger in her vision, warped and distorted under the silver glow of the moon. The structure stood as a sentinel of the unknown, its wooden frame creaking softly, as if whispering secrets from a time long forgotten. Clara thought she could hear the wind carrying a voice, a low, mournful wail that danced between the rustling leaves. It was a sound that seemed to call to her, beckoning her closer to the threshold of the barn, where the line between reality and the inexplicable blurred into a haze of fear. She exchanged glances with the others, their faces painted with the same mixture of dread and fascination. They were all caught in this strange web, drawn together by an instinct that urged them to stay, to uncover what lay beneath the surface of the familiar. But as the wind shifted, carrying with it a chill that wrapped around Clara's bones, she felt a shiver of doubt. Were they brave to venture forth, or foolish to tempt whatever lurked in the shadows? A sudden rustle in the tall grass broke the spell of silence, and Clara's breath caught in her throat. She turned her head sharply, searching for the source of the sound. The villagers followed her gaze, their eyes wide and fearful, scanning the darkness as if expecting to see something emerge. But there was nothing. Just the vast expanse of the field, undulating gently under the invisible weight of anticipation. Yet the sensation of being watched intensified, wrapping around her like a cloak, suffocating in its intensity. The vibrations beneath their feet grew more pronounced, a rhythmic thrumming that seemed to synchronize with their racing hearts. With every pulse, Clara could feel the ground beneath her shifting, a reminder that something was stirring in the depths below. It was as if the very soil was alive, breathing in tandem with the collective anxiety of the group. The air grew heavier, laced with the scent of damp earth and a faint metallic tang that pricked at Clara's senses, heightening her awareness of the world around her. A flash of light pierced the darkness, momentarily illuminating the field in a brilliant glow. Clara squinted against the brightness, her heart racing as she turned to the others. Their faces were a mixture of awe and terror, as if they had all witnessed a miracle and a nightmare in the same instant. The light flickered and danced like a will-o'-the-wisp, weaving through the air with an otherworldly grace, before it vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving only the lingering echoes of its brilliance. What was that? A voice trembled from the back of the group, barely above a whisper. Clara felt the weight of their collective fear pressing down on her, tightening her chest. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, a profound silence enveloped them, each heartbeat reverberating through the night like a drum, drowning out the distant sounds of the farm animals, which had fallen eerily quiet. The villagers began to murmur among themselves, fragmented conversations laced with disbelief and confusion. Clara could hear snippets of phrases: the unexplainable light, something in the field, and we should leave. But the fear in their voices only heightened her own trepidation. They were grappling with the unknown, struggling to make sense of what they had witnessed, while Clara felt an inexplicable pull toward the heart of the mystery that lay before them. As the darkness deepened, the sense of isolation became palpable, a heavy blanket that enveloped them, making the world outside the circle of their gathering feel impossibly distant. Clara's gaze drifted back to the barn, now shrouded in shadows, its silhouette stark against the starry sky. There was something almost sentient about the structure, a reminder that they were not merely visitors on this land, but intruders in a realm where ancient forces still held sway. Then, without warning, a low rumble echoed through the air, a sound that resonated deep within Clara's bones, sending shards of fear racing through her veins. She felt it reverberate up her spine, a visceral reminder that they were not alone. That something watched from the shadows, waiting for an opportune moment to reveal itself. The villagers instinctively huddled closer together, their eyes darting around, searching for answers in the unseen depths of the night. The vibrations intensified, becoming a cacophony of sound without form. Clara could hear whispers, indistinct yet haunting, swirling around her like a tempest. She strained to decipher the words, to grasp the meaning behind the voices that seemed to echo from the very fabric of the universe. But they eluded her, teasing her senses, leaving only a lingering sense of dread. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the field, tugging at their clothes and hair, as if urging them to turn back, to flee from the impending revelation. Clara felt the pull of the earth beneath her feet, a magnetic force that drew her closer to the barn, igniting a flicker of resolve within her. She knew they had to confront the unknown, to uncover the truth that lay hidden beneath the surface. And yet, as she took a tentative step forward, the air crackled with tension, and the ground shifted ominously beneath her. Clara paused, her heart racing, the weight of the moment pressing down on her like a physical force. Would they uncover the answers they sought, or would they awaken something far more sinister? The question hung in the air, heavy with the promise of the unknown, as the night loomed around them. A dark ocean of mystery and fear waiting to be explored. The air thickened as they stood before the barn, a gaping maw of darkness that seemed to pulsate with an energy all its own. Clara felt her heartbeat synchronize with the low rumble that echoed through the night, a primal rhythm that resonated deep within the marrow of her being. The barn loomed large, its weathered wooden planks absorbing the scarce moonlight, casting an eerie glow that flickered like a heartbeat. Shadows danced around them, elongating and contracting as if the very essence of the night was alive, breathing in tandem with their mounting apprehension. As they approached, a sudden silence enveloped them, swallowing the whispers of the wind. It was a silence so profound that it pressed against their eardrums, as if the world had collectively held its breath. Clara could feel the collective anxiety of the villagers around her, the unspoken fear that bound them together, their wide eyes reflecting the starlight as they gazed into the darkened entrance. She could sense their thoughts, the shared uncertainty that coiled tightly in their chests. What lay beyond the threshold? What truth would they unearth? With each step closer, Clara's senses sharpened. The scent of damp earth and aged wood filled her nostrils, mingling with a metallic tang that lingered in the air as if something ancient had been disturbed. The ground beneath her feet felt uneven, shifting like a living entity, making her question her footing. There was an unsettling energy that prickled her skin, an awareness that something unseen was watching them from within the shadows. She glanced back at her companions, their faces illuminated by the fleeting glimmers of light from the stars, and saw the same flicker of fear mirrored in their expressions. Then, without warning, it happened. A blinding light erupted from within the barn, cutting through the darkness like a knife. It was not a typical light, but an ethereal glow that pulsed and shimmered, casting intricate patterns on the walls. Clara instinctively shielded her eyes, feeling the warmth radiate outward, wrapping around her like a cocoon. The villagers gasped collectively, their breaths hitching in their throats as they instinctively stepped back, drawn by the magnetic pull of the light, yet terrified of what it might reveal. Sounds began to fill the air, a symphony of unearthly tones that resonated with the very fabric of the universe. Clara felt the vibrations travel through her, almost as if they were weaving into her very soul. There were no identifiable instruments, no human influence on the melody that now enveloped them. Instead, it was a cosmic orchestra, a hauntingly beautiful sound that seemed to echo from the depths of time itself. This was no mere phenomenon. It was a revelation, an awakening of something that had lain dormant for centuries. Clara's heart raced as she felt the pull of the unknown, the urge to step closer, to uncover the source of this cosmic song. But as she took a step forward, the ground beneath her trembled violently, sending ripples through the earth that shook her to her core. The barn seemed to respond to their presence, the walls vibrating with a life of their own, and Clara gripped the wooden railing of the porch to steady herself. In that moment, the light flickered and dimmed, revealing the barn's interior, a chaotic tapestry of shadows and shifting forms. Clara could make out geometric patterns on the floor, intricate designs that spiraled and twisted, their shapes reminiscent of ancient symbols she had seen in dusty tomes at the town library. They were woven into the very fabric of the barn, pulsating with the rhythm of the otherworldly music. It was as if the barn itself was a canvas for something far greater, a portal to a reality beyond comprehension. The villagers stood frozen, their eyes wide with a mix of awe and terror. Clara could see the flicker of uncertainty dancing in their gazes, the silent question hanging in the air. Should they venture inside, or was this a warning, a sign to turn back? The light flickered again, casting erratic shadows that danced across the walls, and for a moment, Clara thought she saw a figure move within the depths of the barn, a fleeting silhouette that vanished as quickly as it appeared. With a deep breath, she willed herself to move, her feet carrying her forward despite the primal urge to retreat. The air around her crackled with energy, and she stepped inside the barn, entering a realm suspended between reality and the unknown. The moment she crossed the threshold, the vibrations intensified. A low hum that resonated through her bones, reverberating with her heartbeat. As she stood there, enveloped by the pulsating light and the haunting music, Clara felt a presence, a weight in the air, a consciousness that seemed to envelop her, binding her to the very essence of the universe. It was both terrifying and exhilarating, a moment of profound clarity amidst the chaos. She was not merely an observer. She was a participant in something ancient, something that transcended time and space. But just as the realization washed over her, the ground shook violently beneath her feet, and the light flickered once more, plunging the barn into darkness. Clara's heart raced as she struggled to regain her footing, her pulse echoing in her ears like a drum. The music faded, replaced by a deafening silence that pressed upon her, suffocating in its intensity. The villagers outside were shouting, their voices a cacophony of panic, but Clara was frozen in place, her body paralyzed by the overwhelming sense that something monumental was about to occur. In the darkness, a single whisper pierced the air, barely audible yet potent enough to send chills racing down her spine. It was a voice that seemed to echo from the very depths of the cosmos, reverberating through her soul. "You have awakened us." Clara's breath hitched in her throat as the shadows began to coalesce, forming shapes that danced just beyond the edges of her perception. She felt the weight of their gaze, the intensity of their presence, and suddenly, she was not alone. The air thickened with anticipation, the silence pregnant with unspoken possibilities. The very essence of the barn thrummed with life, and Clara knew that whatever lay ahead would change everything they thought they understood about their world. The night outside raged on, a tempest of confusion and dread enveloping the villagers as they shouted into the darkness, their voices echoing against the vast expanse of the field. Inside the barn, however, Clara stood in a realm of frozen time, the weight of the inexplicable pressing upon her like a heavy cloak. The air was thick, almost viscous, pulsating with an energy that felt both alien and achingly familiar, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling around her. She could hear the faintest murmurs of a sound, a low frequency that resonated in her chest, as if the barn itself were alive, breathing in tandem with her heartbeat. It was an ancient sound, one that stirred something deep within her, awakening long-forgotten memories of a time before language, before civilization. The vibrations seemed to weave a tapestry of connection, pulling her closer to the essence of the universe, yet simultaneously pushing her away, as if warning her of the dangers that lay ahead. Suddenly, the whispers coalesced, forming coherent thoughts that echoed in her mind, each word a thread binding her to the unknown. "You have awakened us." The voice was ethereal, reverberating through her very being, instilling both fear and a strange sense of belonging. Clara felt an overwhelming urge to respond, to engage with the presence that had claimed her attention, yet words failed her. Instead, she stood there, her senses heightened, acutely aware of every sound, every nuance of the atmosphere around her. The shadows within the barn began to shift, coiling and uncoiling like smoke, shaping themselves into forms that danced at the periphery of her vision. She could feel their curiosity, a palpable energy that thrummed in the air, and instinctively she took a step back, her heart racing. The barn, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap, the walls closing in with an intensity that was suffocating. The silence that had momentarily enveloped her seemed to amplify every heartbeat, every breath, until it became a symphony of anxiety that reverberated through her bones. Outside, the villagers were still shouting, their voices rising and falling like waves crashing against the shore, but their words were lost to Clara. She was ensnared in a web of wonder and terror, the world outside fading into a distant memory. The barn felt like a threshold, a crossing into another reality, where the rules of nature no longer applied. She could almost taste the metallic tang of fear in the air, as if the very particles around her were charged with the unknown. Then, as if in response to her rising panic, the light flickered back into existence, casting long, eerie shadows across the barn floor. Clara squinted into the brightness, struggling to comprehend the shapes that flitted through the beams of light. They were geometric, almost fractal in nature, twisting and turning in patterns that defied logic. The forms seemed to pulse with life, each movement synchronized to the rhythm of her racing heart, as if they were reflecting her own fear and curiosity back at her. A low rumble echoed from deep within the earth, vibrating through the wooden beams of the barn, and Clara felt the ground shift beneath her feet once more. The sensation was both unsettling and exhilarating, a reminder that she was teetering on the edge of something monumental, something that could shatter the very foundations of her understanding. The whispers grew louder, a chorus of voices weaving in and out of harmony, each tone layered with meaning, each note a thread in the intricate tapestry of existence. As she stood there, enveloped in the pulsating light and the haunting sounds, Clara caught a glimpse of movement in the corner of her eye. She turned her head sharply, her breath hitching in her throat. A figure, no, a shape, was emerging from the shadows, an amorphous silhouette that seemed to shimmer and shift, an embodiment of the very unknown that haunted her thoughts. It hovered just beyond the reach of the light, a paradox of presence and absence, drawing her gaze like a moth to a flame. The shape elongated, stretching toward her as if reaching out, and Clara felt an overwhelming urge to move closer, to touch the intangible, to bridge the gap between the known and the unknown. But a wave of instinctual fear washed over her, paralyzing her in place. She was caught between the desire to understand and the primal urge to flee. The dichotomy of human experience laid bare before her. The air crackled once more, a palpable energy that surged through her body, igniting every nerve ending. Clara took a hesitant step forward, her feet barely making a sound against the wooden floor, as if the barn itself was holding its breath. The figure flickered, and in that fleeting moment Clara felt a rush of clarity, a vision of patterns interwoven with time and space, a glimpse into the very heart of the cosmos. But just as quickly as it had come, the vision dissipated, leaving her standing in the shadowy barn, the weight of the presence pressing upon her with renewed intensity. The whispers crescendoed, filling her mind with images and sensations that transcended language, a kaleidoscope of emotion that threatened to overwhelm her senses. "You are chosen," they seemed to say, a proclamation that resonated deep within her soul. Clara's heart raced as the reality of her situation settled in. She was not merely an observer of strange occurrences. She was entwined in a narrative far greater than herself. The villagers outside, their panic and confusion were but a faint echo in the background of her awakening. She was at the center of a cosmic dance, a participant in a mystery that had been unfolding long before her time. As the shadows continued to pulse and shift, Clara understood that this was only the beginning, and whatever lay ahead would test the very limits of her understanding and her courage. The silence of the barn loomed, heavy with unspoken truths, while the pulsating light and the whispers beckoned her to venture deeper into the unknown. The question lingered in the air, unvoiced yet potent. What would she discover if she dared to step beyond the threshold of fear? The morning sun crept over the horizon, its tentative rays piercing through the lingering shadows of the barn, illuminating the aftermath of the night's inexplicable events. Clara stood at the threshold, eyes glued to the ground where the mysterious formation had left its mark. A chill ran down her spine as she surveyed the scene, the air thick with an unsettling stillness that felt almost sentient. The vibrant colors of dawn contrasted sharply with the ominous feelings brewing within her. The design sprawled across the field, intricate and alluring. It was as if a cosmic artist had descended from the heavens, etching a language of symbols into the earth itself. Each circle, each curve, bore an elegance that defied the mundane. The plants lay perfectly bent, not a single stem broken, as if respecting the artistry of the creation. Clara knelt closer, examining the patterns, her fingers brushing against the soft blades of grass. They were warm to the touch, exuding a faint metallic scent, an aroma that reminded her of damp earth after a summer storm, but laced with something otherworldly. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves of nearby trees, and Clara felt it whispering secrets in her ear. It carried with it the distant sounds of nature waking, but there was an undercurrent to the symphony, a low, vibrating hum that resonated deep within her chest. It was a sound that felt alive, pulsating with an energy she could neither comprehend nor ignore. The birds perched in the trees seemed to be holding their breath, their usual morning songs muted, as if they too sensed the gravity of the moment. As she stood, her heart racing, Clara noticed a gathering of villagers approaching the field, their expressions a concoction of fear, skepticism, and an insatiable curiosity. They clustered at the edge, eyes wide, mouths agape, whispering fervently among themselves. She could hear fragments of their conversations drift toward her, words like impossible, freak of nature, and something unnatural swirling in the air. But amidst the chaos, one voice pierced through the noise, a familiar, steady tone belonging to Old Man Harris, the village historian. "They say these markings are linked to ancient practices," he declared, his weathered face etched with lines of worry and intrigue. "We must respect what we do not understand. It could be a warning or a message from beyond. We are treading on sacred ground." His words sent a shiver through Clara. The implication lingered in the air like a thick fog, and her mind raced with questions that had no answers. She turned her gaze back to the formation, a sudden realization washing over her. This was more than mere curiosity, it was a call to action. The patterns were not only a mystery, they were a challenge, an invitation to delve deeper into the heart of the unknown. The villagers remained rooted in their fear, but Clara felt the magnetic pull of the design, beckoning her to step forward, to uncover the truth that lay hidden beneath layers of time and space. As she approached the center of the formation, the vibrations intensified, wrapping around her like an embrace. The air shimmered with energy, thickening with anticipation. Clara's breath quickened as she reached out to touch the ground, her fingertips brushing against the warm earth, and suddenly images flooded her mind. Visions of ancient rituals, star maps, and celestial alignments danced before her eyes. It was as though the cosmos itself was revealing its secrets, and Clara was both terrified and exhilarated. With each heartbeat, she felt the presence of something greater enveloping her, a force that transcended the physical world. The whispers returned, louder now, resonating in harmony with the vibrations. "You are part of this," they urged, a chorus of voices echoing through her mind. "You must remember." But as the moments stretched, Clara felt the weight of the villagers' scrutiny upon her. Their fear morphed into a palpable tension, snapping like the taut strings of a bow. They watched her, their eyes filled with a mixture of awe and dread, as if she were a conduit between their world and something far beyond their comprehension. She could sense their collective anxiety, a primal fear of the unknown that thrummed in the atmosphere. Then suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the silence, cutting through the tension like a knife. Clara whipped around to see a young boy, his face pale and eyes wide with terror, pointing at the sky. The villagers turned, their expressions shifting from curiosity to panic. Clara followed the boy's gaze, and her heart plummeted. Above them, dark clouds had begun to swirl, forming an ominous vortex that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The air crackled with energy, and Clara felt the ground tremble beneath her feet, vibrations escalating into a chaotic symphony of sound. The whispers morphed into a roar, drowning out all reason, wrapping around her like a storm. The villagers began to retreat, fear propelling them back. But Clara stood rooted in place, her heart pounding in sync with the chaos unfolding around her. As the vortex twisted and turned, a blinding light shot down from the clouds, illuminating the field in an ethereal glow. Clara squinted against the brilliance, and in that moment, she felt a surge of understanding, a connection to the ancient patterns that had been revealed to her. This was not an ending. It was a beginning. But just as quickly as the light enveloped her, it flickered out, plunging the world back into darkness. The vortex dissipated, leaving only an echo of its power in the air. Clara gasped, the realization dawning upon her that whatever had stirred in the night had not vanished. It lingered, watching, waiting. The villagers, now in full retreat, fled the scene in a frenzy, but Clara remained, her pulse racing, a mixture of fear and exhilaration surging through her veins. She understood now that the mystery was far from over. The threads of the cosmos were woven tightly around her, and she was destined to unravel them, even if it meant confronting the darkness that lay ahead. Each moment brought her closer to the truth, a truth that was as terrifying as it was beautiful. The following day dawned heavy with an oppressive silence, a thick blanket of fog draping over the fields like a shroud. Clara stepped outside, her heart still racing from the previous night's events. The air felt different, charged with a tension that left her skin prickling. She walked cautiously toward the field where the chaos had unfolded, the morning sun struggling to pierce through the gloom. Each step felt like a descent into the depths of an uncharted abyss. As she approached, the sight that greeted her was both mesmerizing and unnerving. The crop circles, now illuminated in the soft light, lay before her like an intricate tapestry woven by unseen hands. The plants were bent but not broken, forming perfect geometrical shapes that spiraled outward, each curve and angle precise, almost intentional. Clara knelt down, brushing her fingers against the smooth stalks. A faint metallic scent lingered in the air, reminiscent of old coins and rain-soaked earth. The ground beneath her seemed to hum with an energy that resonated through her bones, the vibrations echoing the pulsating rhythm of the cosmos. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to be enveloped by the sensations around her. The sound of the wind whispered secrets, carrying with it the echoes of last night's terror. There was a stillness in the air, but it was suffused with a sense of anticipation, as if the world were holding its breath, waiting for something to unfold. Clara opened her eyes, her gaze drawn to the center of the largest circle, where the soil appeared darker, almost as if it had absorbed the very essence of the night. Footsteps broke the silence, and Clara turned to find a group of villagers approaching, their faces a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Among them was Old Man Jenkins, his weathered face etched with lines of worry. "We shouldn't be here," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's not safe, Clara. Something unnatural happened here." His words hung in the air, heavy with foreboding. Clara shook her head, determination igniting within her. "But we need to understand what this is. We can't just walk away." The villagers exchanged wary glances, torn between their fear and the inexplicable pull of the mystery that lay before them. As they gathered closer, Clara noticed the subtle differences in their accounts of the previous night. Some spoke of a blinding light, while others described a chilling darkness that seemed to swallow the field whole. Contradictions swirled around like the very clouds that had formed the vortex, creating a tapestry of confusion that only deepened the enigma. It was as if the truth was deliberately obscured, hidden beneath layers of fear and disbelief. Suddenly, a sharp cry pierced the air, drawing everyone's attention to the edge of the field. A horse, wild-eyed and trembling, reared back, refusing to enter the area where the crop circles lay. Its rider, a young girl, struggled to regain control, her voice rising in panic. The villagers rushed to help, but Clara remained rooted in place, her heart pounding. The horse's instinctive fear struck a chord within her, resonating with the primal terror that lingered in the air. As the commotion subsided, Clara felt a pull toward the center of the largest circle, an invisible thread weaving her closer. She stepped forward, ignoring the anxious murmurs of the villagers behind her. The air thickened with tension, and a shiver ran down her spine as she entered the circle. It felt alive, as if the very ground pulsed with hidden knowledge, whispering secrets of the universe into her soul. In that moment, she understood that she was not just a witness to this phenomenon, she was a part of it. The ancient patterns etched into the earth seemed to beckon her, aligning with the very fabric of her being. Clara knelt again, placing her palm flat against the soil, and closed her eyes once more. The vibrations intensified, a deep resonance that echoed through her, and for a fleeting second she felt a connection to something greater, a cosmic design that transcended her understanding. But then, an unsettling chill swept through her, severing the connection. She gasped, her eyes snapping open as the atmosphere shifted violently. The villagers were retreating again, their faces a mask of fear as shadows danced at the periphery of the field. Clara stood, heart racing, realizing that whatever force had awakened the night before was still present, lingering just beyond the veil of perception. "What's happening?" someone cried out, panic rising in their voices. Clara turned to see the villagers' expressions shift from curiosity to pure terror as the ground beneath them trembled once more. The hum intensified, becoming a low growl that resonated in their chests, a reminder of the unknown that lurked just beyond the light. Then, just as abruptly as it had begun, the vibrations ceased, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Clara held her breath, straining to listen for any sign of the unseen force. And then she saw it, a glimmer of light flickering at the edge of the field, a distant echo of the brilliance that had enveloped her the night before. It pulsed rhythmically, beckoning her to come closer, to step into the unknown. "Clara, don't!" Old Man Jenkins shouted, but her feet moved of their own accord, drawn to the light as if it were a moth to a flame. The villagers watched in horror as she approached, the air thick with tension, the weight of their collective fear pressing down upon her. As she reached the edge of the field, the light flared, illuminating the darkness with a brilliance that made her shield her eyes. And in that moment, she felt a profound understanding wash over her, a realization that what lay ahead was not merely a continuation of the mystery, but an invitation to confront the darkness that had haunted her dreams. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the light extinguished, plunging everything into a suffocating darkness once more. Clara stood alone, breathless, the echoes of her heartbeat reverberating in the silence. The villagers had vanished, leaving her with nothing but the lingering promise of the unknown. And as she turned to leave the field, a single thought settled in her mind. Whatever had awakened in the night was still watching, waiting for its moment to reveal itself. In the stillness, Clara felt it. A whisper, a fleeting touch against her consciousness, a reminder that she was not alone in this vast, enigmatic tapestry of existence. The truth was not merely an answer but a journey, one that would lead her deeper into the heart of the mystery, where the stars aligned with the earth and the unknown thrummed in the atmosphere, beckoning her to unravel its secrets.